I need to tell this story because I'm still processing what happened, and honestly, I need people to tell me whether I'm a hero or an asshole. Maybe both. Probably both. This whole situation has been the most stressful, terrifying, and satisfying experience of my professional life, and it's not even close to over yet. My name is David, I'm 34 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm in Boston called Prometheus Capital. I'd been there for 6 years, worked my way up from junior analyst, and I was damn good at my job. I'm talking consistently top performer, client retention champion, the whole 9 yards. I'd even been approached by headhunters from bigger firms, but I'd stayed loyal to Prometheus because I believed in what we were doing. That loyalty, as it turns out, was catastrophically misplaced. Let me introduce you to the main character of this nightmare, my former boss, Richard Castellano. Richard was the chief investment officer, 48 years old, Harvard MBA, corner office with a view of Boston Harbor, and an ego the size of Massachusetts. He'd been with the firm for 12 years and was basically untouchable. Everyone knew he was an asshole, but he made the firm a lot of money, so the partners looked the other way. I'd managed to avoid most of Richard's worst behavior for the first 4 years I was there. I kept my head down, did my work, and stayed off his radar. But about 2 years ago, I got promoted to senior analyst, which meant I started working directly under Richard on some of the firm's biggest accounts. That's when I started noticing things. Small things at first. Trades that didn't quite make sense. Client accounts being moved around without clear documentation. Reports that seemed to have numbers that didn't match the underlying data. I'm a detail-oriented person, it's literally my job, so these inconsistencies bothered me. But I figured there were explanations I wasn't seeing. Richard was the CIO, after all. He knew things I didn't. Then, about 8 months ago, I stumbled onto something I couldn't ignore. I was working late on a Friday night, preparing a quarterly report for one of our biggest clients, the Whitmore Pension Fund. They had about $200 million invested with us, and I was reconciling their account activity for the quarter. As I was going through the trades, I noticed something weird. There were several large trades, we're talking $5 to $10 million each, that had been executed and then reversed within the same day. But the reversal documentation was sloppy, and the fees associated with these trades had been charged to the client even though the trades were cancelled. That's not how it's supposed to work. If a trade is cancelled, the client shouldn't be paying fees. These weren't small amounts either, we were talking about $200,000 in unnecessary fees being charged to this pension fund. I dug deeper. I cross-referenced other client accounts. Same pattern. Trades executed, reversed same day, fees charged anyway. It was happening across multiple accounts, always on trades authorized by Richard. My stomach dropped. This looked like fraud. Not just any fraud, securities fraud. The kind that gets people sent to federal prison. I didn't know what to do. I was looking at potential evidence of criminal activity by the CIO of my firm. If I was wrong, I'd look like an idiot and probably get fired for accusing a senior partner of fraud. If I was right, I didn't even want to think about what that meant. I did what I thought was the right thing. I went to our chief compliance officer, a woman named Margaret Torres. Margaret had been with the firm for 15 years, and I'd always respected her. I figured if anyone would know how to handle this, it was her. I scheduled a meeting with her the following Monday. I brought all my documentation, spreadsheets, trade confirmations, fee calculations, everything. I laid it all out for her. Margaret, I think we have a serious problem. I walked her through what I'd found. She listened carefully, asked good questions, and took notes. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and was quiet for a long moment. "This is concerning," she finally said. "I need to look into this. Can you send me all of this documentation?" "Of course. What should I do in the meantime?" "Nothing. Don't discuss this with anyone else. Let me handle it through proper channels." I felt relieved. I'd done the right thing. I'd reported it to compliance, and they'd investigate and fix it. That's how these things were supposed to work. 2 days later, Richard called me into his office. "David, we need to talk about your performance." I was confused. My performance had been excellent. I'd just closed a major deal the week before. "Okay. I've been reviewing your work, And I'm concerned. You're making a lot of mistakes lately. Missing deadlines. Your analysis on the Morrison account was sloppy. None of this was true. The Morrison account analysis had been praised by the client. I hadn't missed any deadlines. Richard, I don't understand. I haven't received any negative feedback on my work. Well, you're receiving it now. I need you to step up your game, or we're going to have to reconsider your position here. I walked out of his office feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. What the hell just happened? It clicked about an hour later. Margaret had told Richard. She'd gone straight to him with my concerns, and now he was retaliating. Over the next 2 weeks, Richard made my life hell. Every piece of work I submitted was criticized. He started excluding me from important meetings. He gave a project I'd been leading to another analyst. He was building a paper trail to justify firing me. I documented everything. Every email, every conversation, every criticism. I kept copies of my work that showed I was performing well. I knew what was coming. Sure enough, 3 weeks after my meeting with Margaret, I was called into a meeting with Richard and the head of HR, a guy named Paul who was basically Richard's puppet. David, this isn't working out, Richard said. Your performance has been consistently below expectations, and we've decided to let you go. This is retaliation, I said. I reported concerns about improper trading activity, and now you're firing me. Paul jumped in. This is a performance-based termination. We have documentation of ongoing performance issues. Documentation that only started after I went to compliance. This is illegal retaliation, and you know it? Richard smiled. Not a nice smile. You can believe whatever you want, David. But the fact is, you're not a good fit for this firm anymore. Security will escort you out. You'll receive 2 weeks of severance pay. 2 weeks. After 6 years of loyal service and top performance. I got 2 weeks of severance and a security escort out of the building. I was humiliated, furious, and terrified. I had a mortgage. I had student loans. My girlfriend Emma and I had been saving for a wedding. And now I was unemployed with a termination on my record that would make it hard to get another job in finance. But I was also sitting on evidence of what looked like systematic securities fraud. I spent the weekend spiraling. Emma was incredibly supportive, but I could tell she was worried. I was worried too. What was I supposed to do? Let Richard get away with fraud and retaliation? Roll over and move on? On Monday morning, I made a decision. I called a lawyer. Her name was Rachel Goldstein, and she specialized in whistleblower cases and employment law. I'd found her through a Google search for securities fraud lawyer Boston, and her reviews were excellent. I booked a consultation for that afternoon. I walked into Rachel's office with a banker's box full of documentation. I'd copied everything before they took my laptop and building access trade records, emails, spreadsheets, compliance reports, everything. Probably illegal, but at that point, I was past caring. Rachel listened to my entire story without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned forward. David, do you understand what you're alleging here? Securities fraud. Retaliation. Yeah, I understand. This is serious. If what you're saying is true, Richard Castellano could be facing federal charges. The firm could be facing massive fines and sanctions. This is not a small claim about wrongful termination. This is potential criminal activity. I know. And you're willing to be a whistleblower? Because that's what this is. You'll be the person who brought down a CIO at an investment firm. Your name will be public. Your career in traditional finance might be over. Are you prepared for that? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Was I willing to blow up my entire career to do the right thing? Yes. I'm prepared. Rachel smiled. Good. Because I think you have a strong case. Let's talk about next steps. Over the next 2 weeks, Rachel and I built our case. We organized all my documentation. We drafted a detailed complaint. And then, on a Tuesday morning in late September, we submitted a whistleblower complaint to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC takes whistleblower complaints seriously, especially when they come with detailed documentation. Within a week, I got a call from an SEC investigator named Agent Morrison. Mr. Chen, we've reviewed your complaint and your supporting documentation. We'd like to meet with you to discuss this further. I met with Agent Morrison and his team the following Monday. They grilled me for 4 hours, going through every detail of my allegations, every piece of evidence, every conversation I'd had with Richard and Margaret. They were thorough, professional, and gave nothing away about what they were thinking. "We'll be in touch," was all Agent Morrison said when we finished. Then I waited. And waited. And waited. During this time, I was also dealing with practical realities. I was unemployed. I was burning through my savings. I was applying to jobs, but every interview seemed to end when they called Prometheus for a reference. Richard was clearly giving me bad references, which is illegal but hard to prove. Emma and I had to put our wedding plans on hold. That hurt more than I expected. She was amazing about it, kept saying we'd get through this together, but I felt like I was letting her down. I started driving for Uber just to make some money. Me, with a master's degree in finance and 6 years of experience at an investment firm, driving drunk college kids around Boston at 2 a.m. It was humbling as hell. But then, about 6 weeks after I filed my complaint, things started happening. I got a call from Rachel. "Turn on CNBC." I turned it on. Breaking news: SEC opens investigation into Prometheus Capital. My heart started pounding. They were actually investigating. This was real. The news report was vague. It just said the SEC was looking into potential irregularities in trading practices, but I knew. This was because of my complaint. Within hours, my phone started blowing up. Former colleagues were texting me, asking if I knew what was happening. The rumor mill at Prometheus must have been going crazy. Then I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "David. This is Tom Peterson. I used to work at Prometheus." I remembered Tom vaguely. He'd been a senior analyst like me but had left the firm about a year before I was fired. "Hey Tom, what's up? I heard about the SEC investigation. I need to talk to you. I have information you need to hear." We met for coffee the next day. Tom looked nervous, constantly checking over his shoulder like he thought someone might be watching. "I left Prometheus because of Richard," he started. "I saw the same things you did. The improper trades, the excessive fees, all of it. I went to Margaret about it. Let me guess, she told Richard, and he made your life hell." "Exactly. He didn't fire me outright, but he made it so miserable that I quit. And when I quit, they made me sign an NDA and a non-disparagement agreement in exchange for my severance package. I've been too scared to say anything because I thought they'd sue me into oblivion. But you're talking now. Because you were brave enough to report it? I have documentation too. Stuff I kept because I thought someday it might matter. If the SEC is investigating, they need to see what I have." Tom became my second witness. He gave his documentation to Rachel, who forwarded it to the SEC. His information corroborated everything I'd found and added even more examples of Richard's fraudulent activity. Then a third former employee reached out. Then a fourth. It turned out Richard had been running the scheme for years, and multiple people had noticed and been pushed out when they asked questions. The SEC investigation kicked into high gear. Agent Morrison called me several more times with follow-up questions. They subpoenaed records from Prometheus. They interviewed current and former employees. And then, 2 weeks ago, everything exploded. I was in my apartment, working on a job application, when my phone started buzzing with news alerts. I opened one. Federal agents raid Prometheus Capital offices in Boston. I turned on the TV. There were live news helicopters showing federal agents carrying boxes out of the Prometheus offices. The news was reporting that the SEC, working with the FBI, had executed search warrants as part of an ongoing investigation into securities fraud. I just sat there staring at the screen. This was really happening. The details started coming out over the next few days. Richard Castellano had been arrested and charged with securities fraud, wire fraud, and investment advisor fraud. The charges alleged that he'd been running a scheme where he'd execute large trades, then reverse them on the same day, but charge clients the fees anyway. He'd pocketed some of the excess fees through a shell company. Over the course of several years, he'd stolen approximately $12 million from client accounts. $12 million. Margaret Torres was also charged with obstruction of justice for allegedly helping cover up the scheme and retaliating against whistleblowers. 3 other employees were charged with related offenses. The firm's partners claimed they had no knowledge of the fraud, which the SEC is still investigating. Prometheus Capital's assets have been frozen, and the firm is basically dead in the water. And me? I'm the whistleblower who brought it all down. The SEC has whistleblower protection and reward programs. If the SEC recovers money from Prometheus and Richard, I could receive between 10% and 30% of the recovered funds as a reward. We're talking potentially millions of dollars. But that's not why I did it. I did it because it was the right thing to do. The media has been intense. My name leaked, even though whistleblower identities are supposed to be protected. I've had reporters camped outside my apartment. I've gotten threatening emails from people claiming to be Richard's friends or investors who lost money because of the investigation. I've also gotten emails from people calling me a hero. My old colleagues are split. Some are grateful the fraud was exposed. Others blame me for destroying the firm and costing them their jobs. I understand both perspectives, even if I don't agree with the second one. Emma has been incredible through all of this. I'm proud of you, she keeps saying. You did the right thing, even when it was hard. We're actually back to planning our wedding now. We've set a date for next spring. I joked that maybe we should have Richard's trial as our entertainment, and she did not think that was funny. I've had several job offers in the past week. Turns out, some companies actually value whistleblowers and people with strong ethical standards. I'm in final interviews with 2 different firms, both offering significantly more money than I was making at Prometheus. Richard is out on bail, awaiting trial. His lawyer is claiming he's innocent, that this is all a misunderstanding, that the SEC is overreaching. We'll see what a jury thinks. His life is essentially over, though. He's lost his job, his reputation, his professional licenses. He's facing potentially 20 years in federal prison. His wife has reportedly filed for divorce. His name is synonymous with financial fraud in Boston now. Do I feel bad about that? Sometimes. I'm not a monster. I don't take pleasure in destroying someone's life. But then I remember the pension funds he stole from. The retirees whose savings he schemed. The colleagues he pushed out when they asked questions. The way he looked at me when he had me fired, that smug smile like he'd gotten away with something. No, I don't feel that bad. The preliminary hearing is scheduled for next month. I'll have to testify, which I'm dreading. Rachel says I'll do fine, that I just need to tell the truth. Agent Morrison has been prepping me on what to expect. My therapist, yes, I'm in therapy now. This whole thing has been traumatic, says I'm processing a lot of complex emotions. Relief that the truth came out. Guilt about the collateral damage. Pride in standing up for what's right. Anger at how I was treated. Fear about my future. It's all swirling around in my head constantly. But mostly, I feel like I did the right thing. Maybe it was the hard thing. Maybe it was the thing that turned my life upside down and put me through hell. But it was the right thing. I've learned a lot through this experience. Compliance departments don't always have your back. Sometimes they're more interested in protecting the company than addressing problems. Retaliation is real, and it can be brutal. But there are laws against it, and those laws have teeth if you're willing to fight. Whistleblowing is not for the faint of heart. It's scary, it's stressful, and it can ruin your career. But sometimes it's necessary. Documentation is everything. If I hadn't kept copies of everything, I wouldn't have had a case. There are good people out there. Rachel, Agent Morrison, Tom, and the other former employees who came forward, Emma, they all restored my faith in humanity. The SEC actually does investigate fraud. It takes time, but they take it seriously when someone provides solid evidence. Doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it just feels necessary. I've been asked a lot if I'd do it again, knowing what I know now. The honest answer is I don't know. This has been one of the hardest experiences of my life. I've lost jobs, opportunities, colleagues I thought were friends. I've been threatened, harassed, and publicly vilified by some people. But I've also potentially saved millions of dollars for retirees and pension funds. I've helped take down a criminal who thought he was untouchable. I've proven that you don't have to accept fraud and corruption just because it's coming from powerful people. So yeah, I think I would do it again. I'd hate every minute of it, but I'd do it. For anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, who's seen something wrong at work and doesn't know what to do, here's my advice. Document everything. Keep copies of evidence, but be careful about company policies on data retention. Consult with a lawyer before you do anything. Understand that this might blow up your life. Be prepared for retaliation. Know that whistleblower protections exist, but they're not perfect. And make sure you have a support system, because you're going to need it. Also, be really sure that what you're seeing is actually fraud or illegal activity. Don't blow the whistle on something that's just bad management or a difference of opinion. This is nuclear option territory. Use it wisely. As for what happens next, I honestly don't know. The trial could take a year or more. The SEC investigation into the firm's partners is ongoing. My own career is in limbo until I figure out what my next move is. But I'm sleeping better at night than I have in months. Not because everything is resolved, it's not, but because I know I did the right thing. I stood up to someone powerful who was breaking the law, and I didn't back down even when it would have been easier to just walk away. Richard Castellano thought he was untouchable. He thought he could get away with stealing millions of dollars because he made other people money and had powerful friends. He thought he could fire anyone who questioned him and no one would push back. He was wrong. And that, more than anything else, makes all of this worth it.